In this corner, Grump, I'm a Grump, the unicorn, not so Grump, it's Game Grumps versus. Hey, welcome to Game Grumps versus, everybody. I'm Aaron, this is Danny.
I think that's copyrighted.
Oh, damn it.
Aaron.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of The Game Changer, a very special edition. I am your host, Nate the Effing Great, joined here by my wonderful co-host, Mr. Max Beatty. How's it going, good sir?
I'm doing okay. I feel like we spoke recently, like maybe it was last night.
You'd probably be right. I don't know why that is, but...
I don't know, maybe it's because I rewatched one of the things that we were talking about last night.
Lucha Underground?
No.
Okay.
Wrestle Kingdom, man.
Okay.
I watched it in the proper order, and I stand by what I said last night. The original booking feels a little bit weird. It's still probably going to be the best fucking show of the year, but still.
Well, you know.
I'm allowed to nitpick.
Well, unfortunately, guys, we're not here to talk about wrestling. We're actually here to do a new show.
Oh, God, I'm out of my element.
Right.
I'm scared.
Basically, you could call this movies versus, but we like to call it the club battle, in which we take movies from the past.
Club them to death.
Yes. Take them from the past, the present, and we actually determine which one of them was better. And in this first episode, we're going to decide probably the debate that is amongst debates. Who was the best Spider-Man? Was it the original Spider-Man featuring Tobey Maguire? Was it the Amazing Spider-Man featuring Mr. Andrew Garfield? Or was it the newer released Spider-Man Homecoming featured Tom Holland? And how we're basically going to do this, you guys, is that we actually have a point system in which both of us are going to have 5 points to basically choose which Spider-Man we thought was best in the terms of the order that we have it in. We're going to be basing this on
getting my notes.
on 5 things. We're basing this on plot, supporting cast, villains, love interest, and all in all, who was the best Spider-Man, to determine who was indeed the best. So, Mr. Max Beatty, are you ready to marvel out?
I am. I just have to say, though, that as someone who's been reading the comics since they were about 2-3 years old, it is so weird to live in a point where the concept of, who is the best Spider-Man, or what's the best Spider-Man, isn't, is it like Ben Reilly, Peter Parker, Miguel O'Hara from Spider-Man 2099, is it 1602? No, it's the multiple movie iterations. This is, like, 10-year-old me would just, head would be exploding. But no, I'm ready.
And you know what's going to be actually amazing is that we might have to do this again with the winner of this taking on the new Spider-Man that's going to be coming out this year. The one
that's right. They're finally Sony animated, and it's in theaters. Spider-Men. It's going to be a takeoff of the Spider-Verse storyline, where the original Spider-Man, Peter Parker, the one from the original comics, Miles Morales, the Ultimate Spider-Man, and a bunch of other Spider-Men from different alternate realities all met up, and they're turning this into a animated movie done by Sony, and that first trailer is just... I mean, I've heard a few people complain, well, they only focused on Miles in that trailer. It's the debut trailer, and they had to focus on the debut trailer on whoever the main Spider guy is going to be. Pretty cool that they're doing Miles. I think people have been chomping at the bit for that one. But yeah, we might have to do this again. And that one's going to be really hard because it's probably going to have like 4 or 5
different Spider-Mans. Yeah.
Oh my god. As long as they bring in Spider-Ham. Spider-Ham. Peter Porker. Those of you who think I'm making this up just for a stupid joke, no, this is a thing that Marvel did. And continues to do on occasion.
No, I believe you.
Comics are fucking weird.
Because I do believe you because I actually went to a convention, and there was basically like a picture of like all the different Spider-Mans, including Spider-Gwen and Ultimate Spider-Man and all that. And I did see the Peter Porker in there, so I'm just like, I can attest that this is real. Oh yeah, this is one of those things that's real.
Comics are fucking weird. I'm still hoping that that last Fox X-Men movie, Dark Phoenix or whatever they're calling it. I'm still hoping that Shadowcat has her pet named Lockheed. Lockheed in the comics was a tiny dragon. I hope that the bird-like alien empire shows up. And, of course, let's not forget the space pirates that chill out in a giant spaceship that's kind of designed to look like a pirate ship that are called the Starjammers. 70s comics are amazing.
With that being said, let's get right into it. And we're going to start it off like any good movie would have, starting with the plot. So basically what we'll kind of do for this is that we'll both kind of chime in on our details on this. But when it comes to the Amazing Spider-Man, I think I'm going to have you take over for that because you probably have a more reasonable understanding as to, what it probably presents. Because I don't think I can do justice really. So starting off with the first ever Spider-Man, kind of the basic storyline that you would actually see from Spider-Man. You do definitely see, Peter Parker, him get bitten by the spider. See a lot of things that,
Him be the poor put upon geek.
Basically, yeah. You see a lot of things he has to go through. He does deal a little bit with, life as, a geek, life as a, regular person. But mainly it does focus more on him being the superhero and, of course, living off of the Ben Parker motto of great power comes great responsibility. We do get to see the scene where, Ben Parker gets killed. We see him confront the killer where basically Spider-Man, aka Peter Parker, does make the decision to save the lives of others. We get introduced to the first villain. It's a pretty straightforward storyline, in all honesty.
It kind of had to be, before that, I think probably the most complicated superhero movie was probably either Superman 2, Christopher Reeve, went for the diehards, like me. Either version, the original or the Richard Donner cut, and then I'd probably make an argument for Batman Returns, maybe. And I'm not saying this is complexity is a good thing, but maybe even Batman and Robin because it had so many fucking subplots all over the place. So I think even though Spider-Man's a character that probably just as much as Superman or Wonder Woman or Batman, he's one of the most well-known characters. I think keeping it straightforward was actually a good thing. Because this was, really gunning for the mainstream instead of just kids' cartoons or something like that. So, I personally don't have any problems with it being a very simple, straightforward story. I have other problems. Although, admittedly, they're not necessarily with the story. The story in the first Spider-Man movie, just from a strictly narrative viewpoint, is actually pretty good. It's actually not half bad. Mm-hmm. It's basic, but it has a consistent tone. Everything that needs to be explained is explained. It does a lot of things visually. From a narrative standpoint, I really can't knock the first Spider-Man movie.
Now we go into the Amazing Spider-Man movie, and some people would say it's basically almost like shot for shot the same as the original Spider-Man, but can you give us a little more insight on...
Well, there are definitely things that are the same. Obviously we see a more modernized take on Peter Parker, and that's kind of the key thing is the first movie was very much trying to adapt the comics from when Spider-Man first came out, the 60s, when it was the tail end of the Silver Age. So things are pretty silly and cheesy and campy. Even in 2002, if you were a science geek, no one was going to treat you the way Peter Parker was getting treated in the movie. Here, Peter is more modernized. He is a science geek. He knows a lot of specifically about, biology and computer sciences. It's always weird how geniuses in movies will have, these two completely non-connected fields of study that they just mastered, but whatever. That's fine, I guess. But he's more of the loner, the outsider. Flash is just a general douchebag asshole at school. They take a lot from the Ultimate line, the scene where with the basketball, where he's like, "Come on, Flash, just take it," and he shatters the rim. It's kind of one big nod to Ultimate Spider-Man because an Ultimate Spider-Man at one point, not long after he'd first gotten bitten, Peter's ducking all of Flash's punches as he attempts to beat him up, and then he just holds his hand up flat and catches the punch and just breaks his hand. Later on, early on in the story, Peter in the Ultimate Comics joins basketball team. So, crashing and destroying the hoop and all that. It's a nice little reference nod if you're paying attention. But from there, it's a much more grounded portrayal, especially, treating Aunt May and Uncle Ben they're always, his parents. They're not really his parents, and we even see at least his. We know we see both of his mom and dad at his real parents at the start of the movie, and then one of his last interactions with Uncle Ben is it's really tense and painful, and the search for Uncle Ben's killer, where it's Spider-Man is such an asshole, and I'm he's lashing out like a teenager. He's like 15, 16 in this movie. It's 2012. I can't imagine too many 15, 16-year-old kids, male or female, with those powers in that situation, not kind of gunning for the fuckers who did this. And, this climactic scene where he finally decides, no, I'm actually going to use my powers for good, is, the scene on the bridge where he, saves the kid, and of course the lizard shows up, who's not, the Dr. Connor's storyline's nicely woven in. Peter is looking for information on his father. Connor's worked with his dad. He's working on this genetic serum that can like regrow limbs and all that. So that's actually really well done. Eventually, he lets Gwen Stacy, the girl he's been crushing it on, in on it, his secret. Her dad, who's Commissioner Stacy on the police force, finds out. That leads to the big ultimate battle with the lizard. Aside from the problem of, a lot of the early stuff is going to be similar because, just not even counting the comic books, so not even acknowledging Ultimate Spider-Man, there's, the Sam Raimi movies, this movie, the Spectacular Spider-Man animated series, and at least 2 video games that all retold the whole Uncle Ben story, and it's like, it's after a certain point, there's nothing you can do about that. They didn't need to do it. Spider-Man Homecoming didn't do it. But aside from that, the lizard stuff was rushed. They should have had more time with Dr. Connors. I don't know. It's hard to compare this one to the first Spider-Man from the original trilogy of movies. It's hard to compare them because the first one's nice and simple and straightforward. This one has a lot more going on, but it winds up stumbling in a few points. Rehashing certain things or going through some unnecessary stuff like that skateboarding scene, or winding up rushing the lizard. But the story can feel a lot more satisfying because so much of it is so well executed and there's so much more going on. Also, still the best Stan Lee cameo. just look up Stan Lee, Amazing Spider-Man 2012. You will thank me. If you can hate this movie all you want, but that fucking cameo is just headphones and the chair, it's fucking love that.
I was considering the idea of actually having like a best Stan Lee cameo throughout all these Spider-Man movies. But I'm thinking, Stan Lee probably deserves a category all his own. So.
Oh, yeah. Don't get me wrong, all the Spider-Man movies, from what I've noticed, have had pretty good cameos. Like, I actually really love, I think it's Spider-Man 3, where Peter's just looking at the little thing that says, it gets the key to the city, and Stan Lee just walks in, wow, I guess one person can make a difference. And he just kind of makes a joke out of it, and I'm like, I fucking love you, man.
Then we move on to, of course, Spider-Man Homecoming, which does, in fact, take a little bit of a different turn than the other 2 Spider-Mans, because usually you would think, well, maybe they'll probably just do the same thing they've done with the last 2. They'll go through, like, the whole system of, had to deal with the loss of Uncle Ben and everything else. Never did that. They went completely in a different direction. They definitely did mention the fact that, Aunt May had to go through a lot, especially with Uncle Ben dying. They did mention that, but they didn't go to like a full extent of actually making a huge.
And they did mention that they had to move a few times before, Peter joined the Avengers for Civil War, and they've had to move like once or twice since. So it's like clearly things aren't too financially stable.
Right. The story itself is actually flows pretty well. In all honesty, it basically does do a good job of basically giving Peter a little more human-like qualities, where he's actually being a kid. He's dealing with, bullies. He's dealing with all the pressures of high school, dealing with stuff like that, while, of course, trying to be Spider-Man.
Plus, now we have 3 Marvel villains that either won or didn't suck. Loki, Baron Zemo from Civil War, since regardless of if you didn't like him, he fucking won. His goal was just break up the Avengers and torment them. Fucker won. And the Vulture in this one. So we've got at least 3 good villains out of, 17 movies. It's a bad track record. Loki's not even really a villain anymore. Oh my god.
And definitely we'll talk a lot about, Vulture when we get into the villain aspect of it.
I hate to be that person. I thought the best part of the plot was the Vulture.
I find that really hard to argue with, because...
I am kind of that is kind of a dig at the story. The story for me was it was simple and complicated at the same time. Like there's a lot going on, but everything's nice and streamlined. But
yeah,
I don't know. It felt like an Iron Man story to me.
They definitely did
And-
hit on the fact that, of course, that Spider-Man was definitely relying a bit on Pappy and on
And the
Tony
suit.
Stark and on the suit. But they did still have a really great climax at the end where
Oh, yeah.
Tony Stark's, phrase of, if you think that you need the suit, then you don't deserve the suit.
Yeah.
I honestly thought that was the best line of the entire movie by far, next to probably one of
Oh, yeah.
Michael Keaton's many lines during the entirety
Oh,
of
God,
the movie.
Oh, God, yeah.
But it's one of those things where it definitely does seem like he really does start to become the actual Spider-Man that we came to know and love. Because, he's still a kid. So he's still, starstruck at the fact that, oh, I got to work with Tony Stark. I got to meet up with, Captain America.
His
and blah,
whole
blah, blah.
little, setting up all the videos he's taking at the start of the movie.
And it's one of those few things where...
The fact that I'm like, as soon as he started filming the Civil War battle, I'm like, yup, that would be me. That would be like everyone in this theater. You can't put it up on YouTube or anything. Yeah, I just want to watch it, dude.
just gonna,
I did. Look at that. That is me fighting Captain. That is me getting my ass kicked by Captain America.
It's just absolutely amazing how they did that. So...
Although, for me though, and people are gonna gripe that I mentioned this, but it was really weird the whole movie, like watching Miles Morales' story play out with Peter Parker, and then partway through, like, oh yeah, when he had Donald Glover and he had him wet when he tried to disguise his voice and it didn't work thing. That guy's like, oh, I've got a nephew here, and that guy is canonically Miles' uncle. I'm like, how can you be his uncle? He's like right there, and then I'm like, oh right, it's right. Damn it! It just it trips me up, man. It trips me up.
Well, I think that we've got enough of that going through. So, debate here being which one had the better plots.
I'll say it's between Spider-Man 1 and Amazing Spider-Man 1.
I think I'll go first in this one. I think I went with the simple line. I would definitely go with the first. Definitely with the first Spider-Man. I think that, the storyline is very basic. It was very forward. It worked out. Really not too many issues with it. I think a lot of people liked the fact that it was simple. It was, again, straightforward.
Oh, yeah.
Very easy to follow. Very flowing. And the fact that we got to see a lot of Spider-Man action. So I'm going to give my point to the first Spider-Man for this one.
Yeah, for story, I actually got to agree. Like, I do enjoy the first Amazing Spider-Man. I still think it has a really good storyline, but the repetition and the unnecessary bits and the parts that got a bit rushed, it creaks around a bit too much. This one was much more streamlined, so just from a strictly story standpoint, yeah, first Spider-Man wins out.
All right, so then we move on to supporting cast. Starting off with the first Spider-Man. Pretty good, solid cast, in all honesty. I mean, you had, of course, Aunt May and Uncle Ben. They were very good and very...
Still probably the best Uncle Ben.
Oh, definitely. I definitely will agree with that. You definitely have, Harry Osborn, played off by James Franco, who, in all honesty, I'm just going to say this right now, he was probably the only person that benefited from this entire Spider-Man series, in all honesty.
Because, Willem Dafoe already had his own career. Kristen Stewart, her career had already started.
No, it's Kirsten Dunst.
Kirsten Dunst, whatever. And then she's off doing her own thing with her career now, so she's doing okay. But, Tobey Maguire fell off the map. Everyone either had already had a career or just didn't do almost anything after these movies.
Yeah, sounds about right. I think another few people that we can mention, J.K. Simmons, who played J. Jonah Jameson, who is honestly the only person I could see playing J. Jonah Jameson.
Oh my god!
And then we have...
It was just of all the things that they took from the 60s Spider-Man, they took J. Jonah, it's oh, how are they possibly going to do this? J.K. Simmons, alright, sign me up. It was so fun, that is some Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man perfect casting. Just Jesus.
And, even the small cameos every now and then.
Wait, you're serious?
Right? even the small cameos every now and then,
Bruce Campbell.
I was going to say also Elizabeth Banks, who was the secretary in there, which I think a lot of people actually don't
Betty
even remember.
Brant.
Morant, yep.
Yep, in the comics, Peter's first love. I actually thought when they first introduced her, I'm like, okay, so they got Mary Jane. Oh, they're going to, like, do a love triangle thing with, like, the three of them, or he's going to go for Betty first, and then she's going to shoot him down, and, like, he gets with MJ in the third movie, and I'm like, oh, we're just going with MJ. Well, that's different. All right.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, like I said, it was a pretty solid supporting cast. Can't really complain too much about it. Significant roles that they played to helping out Peter, I think they did their job, in all honesty. There was none that I thought really kind of hurt the Peter Parker name. Like you said, J. Jonah Jameson was indeed the vindictive asshole that needed to, find Spider-Man and be
Spider-Man, hero or menace?
If you think he's going to be famous, I'm going to make him infamous.
God damn it.
I think already early on we might have a winner, but I think I do have a case for it.
Oh my god! Well, one person does not make an entire cast, but just if one performance could sell a movie, we'd already have our winner.
This is very true. All right, so for the Amazing Spider-Man, again, a pretty decent solid casting. I mean, Gwen Stacy played by Emma Stone.
Probably one of the best depictions of Gwen Stacy. But then again, Gwen Stacy is like those of us who read the comics know Gwen Stacy. Yeah, she was like for a long time she was the love of Peter's life out of like the 8,000 girlfriends he's had. No, seriously, seriously, Peter is like, oh, he's this poor put upon nerd. Yeah, until fucking college, man. And then after that, it's like damn, son.
You also had Martin Sheen, who played the role of Uncle Ben.
He did a great job.
He did a pretty decent job.
Yeah, I liked him. I do still prefer... I can't remember the actor's name that played him in Spider-Man, but I still prefer his performance. But Martin Sheen did a good job. Great job.
Cliff Robertson.
Cliff Robertson. He's still the best. I prefer the Aunt May in Amazing Spider-Man.
Of Sally Fields.
Yeah, Sally Field did a great job.
She honestly, I think if there was like a perfect depiction of like for me the animated Spider-Man series, Aunt May, to like the actual one, I think Sally Fields was the one that fit the most.
I kind of wish we could have gotten like her Aunt May with Robertson's Uncle Ben. That would have been perfect. But trying to think here. Even though he didn't show up that much, I did like the Amazing Spider-Man's version of the Flash. Because, like, he's the dumb meathead jock, but he wasn't even that in the 60s. In the 60s, he was just the stereotypical, bully. He was, but he was kind of a ladies' man and all this. And here, he was just a big, dumb, abusive asshole. I actually kind of liked that bit, where, like, Peter slams him up against the locker and Flash is just like, I know it hurts, man. You lost your uncle. I'm sorry. And he's actually trying to be a human being. And it's just, oh, goddamn, son, don't you do this to me. Don't play with my feelings like this. Like, that was great. I'm trying to think here. Dr. Connors, since really more or less the villain of the movie would be the Lizard. Dr. Connors was great, even though he needed more. I think there should have been more time with him before Lizard show up, but that's me. He was still really good. The one Indian dude that worked for worked directly for Norman Osborn was completely fucking pointless. Like, I don't even, why are you here, bro? Why? Anybody could do your job, man.
Right.
So I didn't really like him. I loved Gwen Stacy's family. Like, just the little bits with her mom and siblings. And then, of course, her dad was just perfect.
Need you to say more.
I mean, it's like, Dennis Leary. I mean, admittedly, every time I see him, I think his stand-up from the fucking 90s. God, now I feel fucking old. But he's a great actor. I thought he did a damn good job. Overall. Who else was in the supporting cast? I'm trying to think here. Who else was in the supporting cast for this one? I think in terms of relevant supporting cast, that might be about it. I mean, Not unless we're going to start counting, like, Stan Lee cameos and running bystanders. I mean, I guess you could argue that maybe Amazing Spider-Man 2 had a bigger... no, I think that actually had a smaller supporting cast, because then you'd have to get to the villains with that one. I still think, everything I loved about the characters from the first Amazing Spider-Man carried over to the second one. I mean, spoiler alert, Amazing Spider-Man 2 is not... There's a reason why we didn't mention it in the story section. It was real bad. Oh god, the story was just a colossal mess, but the characters were really good in the dialogue. That's actually why I still enjoy the movie. It's kind of a bad movie, but I enjoy it, because the characters and the dialogue were great, and so are the visuals, but, I think the Amazing movies have, like, a smaller, technically, cast than the first one. But I think what they do with the characters fleshes them out a lot more, makes them more grounded and realistic. Like, obviously, grounded and realistic was not what the original trilogy was going for. But I feel like these movies, like, the characters are just going to hit and connect more. And I feel like the cast is just more well fleshed out.
I can see that. So, the final thing, of course, being Spider-Man Homecoming. And, I mean, let's face it, they definitely do incorporate a bit of the Iron Man aspect. Robert Downey Jr. makes an appearance. We got Happy.
They kind of pull from the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon with all the high school kids.
Yeah.
Because there's his best friend Ned. There's the one, like, sassy girl that he kind of sort of doesn't but does flirt with.
Are we talking about Michelle?
Yeah, Michelle. I couldn't.
That'd be Miss Zendaya, who is...
Yeah.
Honestly, she's doing a really good... I know we're getting a little off topic here, but she's doing really good this year. I mean, in my opinion, seeing her in Spider-Man Homecoming, great. And then seeing her basically go from that to a polar opposite in The Greatest Showman was, honest to God, holy cow. One of those things where it's like, oh, she's going to go places.
I still want to see The Greatest Showman.
But yeah, we also had...
then you have their version of Aunt May. You've got his best friend Ned.
Yeah, let me at least get her name so that way we can at least try to give her some justice, because I will say that it was literally one of those moments where it's just like, we really just I will not let what is it? Marissa
Tomei.
Marissa Tomei, yep.
Well, she's an iconic actress. Tons of people know her. There wasn't really enough of her in the movie for me to get a grasp on, or even really... Like, I'm not saying this as a joke, but the last scene in the movie, the actual movie proper, before I get into, like, credit scenes where she sees Peter take off his mask, and she's like, what the fuck? And it cuts her off. That was, like, the most I connected to her, because, yeah, that's funny, haha, but it's also, like, a very real reaction, like... You see something that shocking, oh, my nephew/adopted son is Spider-Man. Yeah, I think what the fuck is probably the only thing that most people, especially in a parental figure, would think. But, like, there's not enough of her really in this. And that's okay. That's fine. It's not a bad thing, because she's not really important. Yeah. She's just in the movie when she needs to be.
I mean, we also mentioned a couple other people, including, you mentioned Danny Glover, who... played actually a bigger role than I think a lot of people really give him.
Danny Glover.
Was it Danny Glover?
Donald Glover.
Donald Glover, thank you.
Yeah, Donald Glover.
Why was I thinking Danny Glover?
I don't know. For those of you who like me listen to rap and hip hop, Donald Glover, I should say was, because he's now retired from music because he hates me personally. But he was Childish Gambino. Fantastic actor. I've seen. He's also the lead role in the awesome TV series Atlanta. Check that shit out. He played a bigger role than I think I really anticipated it. And of course, there's the, oh my god, it's Miles' uncle, that's fucking great. And that means when they do the Spider-Man movie, since that's a bunch of multiverses, I'm just taking it as headcanon that Homecoming exists in that universe, so BAM! Miles' uncle already jumped ship from one universe to the other. That's why he's in this movie.
Yeah, and apparently he also voiced Morales in the Ultimate Spider-Man television series. Yeah.
I thought that was kind of cool. Don't have as many positive things to say.
Okay, then.
If you want the best Spider-Man adaptation that isn't a movie, it's probably the 2-season Spectacular Spider-Man show. Only reason why it's not as great as it could have been is because they had like ongoing stuff that when the second season ended and then it got canceled because God hates me.
Right.
But anyway, back to this. Like I said, Aunt May's not really important to Homecoming's story, so it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal that she doesn't feature too prominently in it. Ned's pretty funny.
I mean, he does try to actually help out. He's almost like the sidekick to what Spider-Man needed to be. And,
would you count the AI lady in Peter's suit?
Oh, Karen?
Because people count Jarvis and Friday.
Right. Well, actually, that's going to really tie into who I'm picking for Best Supporting Cast. I'm obviously going with Spider-Man Homecoming. As for the reasons that, because of the three actors, of course, Happy, Tony Stark, and Karen, because Happy's kind of like the person that kind of watches over him, make sure he doesn't get into trouble. Of course, Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man, Tony Stark, is basically almost like the hard knocks father figure that Peter kind of always wanted, but at the same time,
didn't really think he would need, and
right.
Then he turns out he needs him and he doesn't like him.
Yeah, and you mentioned it.
Welcome to having a dad, Petey boy.
And the AI, Karen, she really, to me, played a very pivotal role, especially when they got locked in the...
when she kept putting him in the assassin mode.
Something like that, but no.
No, go out of it! Go out of it!
But no, the...
I think Karen might have an itchy trigger finger.
That might be the case. But no, when they're locked in that almost like that, like, I don't know if it was like a storage area or something like that.
Yeah.
And Peter's learning about how to use his powers properly and how all the functions work. And they actually have like those legitimate conversations about, well, I like this girl. What do I really do? And Karen actually really starts playing almost like a mother,
an older sister.
Doing that. She kind of almost makes up for the lack of May Parker in the movie,
which is weird since she's like she's artificial intelligence that she's making up for Aunt May. It's just,
but you also have to consider that it is Tony Stark's invention, which does say to us that he knows what he's doing when it comes.
Oh God, of course, it's Tony.
But yeah, it was those kind of deals that really made me think. I think that's why I loved this movie a lot, was because the supporting cast definitely helped Peter. I mean, is this Peter version the best Spider-Man? Well, we'll find out at the end.
Yeah.
But I think that this is probably one of the few times where I'll say that these guys actually helped Peter become the actual Spider-Man that he was. I mean, beforehand, he was just like an internet sensation. He was just a fanboy, doing that kind of stuff. But during the movie, you slowly see him just progressively starting to mature. And it's because of all the people that he interacted with, like I said. With Happy, with Tony, with Karen. It's because of those three people that really set the bar and really kind of set the pace for what Peter needs to be doing with his life. So that's why I kind of went with that one. But
I would honestly go with the Amazing Spider-Man movies. I feel like they're the most well fleshed out. They're the most relatable. The most well written. They have the best dialogue. Like their conversations felt the most real to me. So I got to go with that because, like, for me, some of the best Spider-Man moments in the comics aren't always the big battles. They're sometimes just the moments between him and the supporting cast of characters, or even intermingling amongst themselves, or it's the character moments in general. And I know a lot of other Spider-Man fans feel the same. So that felt very reflective of the comics for me. So that's another reason why I would definitely pick that too.
All right, well, we got our points set for that one. All right, we go on to the next one, which is probably our favorite category, the villain.
I already know which one I'm picking.
I already know too, but we gotta talk about, the three villains here.
Green Goblin is a leftover Power Rangers villain. Doc Ock is actually really fucking cool. Venom sucked. Sandman sucked. Electro kinda sucked. What was the other guy? Green Goblin was in Amazing Spider-Man 2 was...
He barely got that much of it.
He was like, he was okay, I guess. I don't know. The Lizard was really good, but rushed. Ninja Snowboarder Green Goblin 2 from Spider-Man 3 was... he sure was the thing, guys. And then he got amnesia, and then he stopped having amnesia, and he was a prick, and then he died. I got nothing on that, and and fuck it, the best villain's the Vulture from Homecoming. Fuck it. As Mean Gene once said at SummerSlam, fuck it.
Right. So basically, I will agree with a lot of people that would say the Green Goblin, played by William Dafoe, was probably one of his best, bad guy roles.
His heart! First we attack his heart! Finish it!
But of course, one of the things that definitely stood out was the fact the whole deal where, he's having that interaction with that second person that he has inside of him, in the mirror. And some people would think,
cunning warrior attacks neither body nor mind. That voice, man. Like, did you ever see, by the way, did you ever see the props and stuff that they were originally going to do for the costume? Like, it was this really freaky looking, like, it had a moving mouth and everything, and it looked a lot like a terrifying version from the comics. And I'm like, that would have been great. We got a leftover Power Ranger villain. That's cool too. That's okay.
Little salty.
Just like when you see his mouth move behind the mesh screen that's in the fucking mask's mouth. It's just...
It's too cheesy.
Oh, I can't. It's just...
I mean,
when he starts he sings the Itsy Bitsy Spider song while shooting rockets. I just... I can't. MJ and I are gonna have a hell of a time. What?
Man,
you never know when some sadistic villain's gonna come along. When some crazy psychopath is gonna come along with a sadistic choice. Doc Ock was pretty great, though.
We're not talking about Spider-Man 2. We're talking.
I know. I'm just saying Doc Ock was really good, though.
Oh, but trust me, we are going to definitely go into more of the first three Spider-Mans a little later on in the series. But
I know. I'm just
you're just getting it all out right now. I could tell.
A little bit. Like Doc Ock was actually pretty good. Like if they had played the Goblin more like they did Doc Ock, I think it would have been a lot better. Yeah. Actually, they just played a lot of the villains in the original trilogy a lot. Like, Doc Ock got the nice fine line between being really sympathetic and really evil and really human, but still kind of cheesy. And I think Alfred Molina's performance helped with that. So he's probably easily the best villain of the original trilogy. He's still a great fucking movie villain. The fucking, I'm sorry, it's like, and plus the arms are like some of the only effects in the original Spider-Man movies that still really hold up, especially when they're just doing like a slow close-up and it's like an actual like mechanical puppet thing. It's like, it looks fucking cool. But yeah, Green Goblin, just, God,
Well, while you're salting in your saltiness, I'll see if I can get a little more of what I think about the Green Goblin right here, where basically, I get where people probably are not exactly fully on board with the Green Goblin deal, but I do love the scene where Green Goblin and Spider-Man have like that conversation, and Spider-Man is just kind of like dazed, he's confused, and Green Goblin brings up the very interesting point that does transition very well, where he says, there's 1 million people in New York right now, and eventually they will hate you. And of course that transitions into a newspaper article which says, basically Spider-Man hated. As well as things where it does show conflict that the Green Goblin actually created from saying that line. Granted, like you said, he does look like a rejected Green Power Ranger.
In that same speech, he also says, I could squash you like a bug right now. And it's like, so why don't you, man?
Well, it's kind of like,
Also, that line, man, just, I could squash you like in that voice.
It kind of plays off, I think, on the same prospect of between the Joker and Batman during the Dark Knight movie, where Joker could just kill Batman right away, but he says it. He's like, we need each other. We're like yin and yang. We basically balance each other out.
I know.
I'm never going to kill you.
But this is also the movie that began the Spider-Man movie tradition that lasted for 5 movies of murdering every villain in a horrible fucking way. Jesus. Like, Goblin gets fucking gored on his own Goblin glider. Doc Ock is drowned / crushed by a miniature sun. Venom gets nuked by a bomb.
Sandman just disintegrates.
Yeah, Sandman just kind of disintegrates and he fucks off. But still, Venom died. No. Spider-Man, the first Amazing Spider-Man doesn't kill the villain. But it's like, they were gonna bring Electro back. I'm like, fucking how? He blew the fuck up. Like, no, it started the Marvel tradition. Like, outside of the X-Men movies, the villains must die.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
It was brutal too with the Goblin. Like, you hear a crunching sound. There's blood all over the spears. On the end of it, there's blood pouring out of his mouth. Don't tell Harry. He slumps over with his fucking eyes open. It's like, Jesus! I saw this when I was 13. I mean, I've been watching horror movies, but you don't expect that shit in Spider-Man.
This is true. You definitely did hit a lot on the Lizard, and we definitely do highly love Michael Keaton's interpretation of Vulture. And the one thing that I love about Michael Keaton's Vulture is that
he's a regular dude.
He really does. He plays that up, and I never really saw that in the animated series. He was just kind of like going between old man and young man. He never really did too much. But during this movie, you definitely do see that, he tries to act like a regular person, but, behind the scenes, he is just this genius mastermind. He puts his family first, but he also wants to provide for them in the best possible way, which I looked at and I thought, it's a relatable deal. I mean, people will go through large lengths just to provide for their family. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, you can't necessarily hate him for what he does, but at the same time, you can't help but root against him because he is the Vulture, he is a villain. But Michael Keaton just does...
suit, though.
Michael Keaton just does such an amazing job. Yes, you do admit that suit
is so badass.
It's absolutely amazing.
I've heard so many people bitch like, he's nothing like the comics Vulture. You're right. He's not a random old genius who decided to rob banks dressed up as a green bird. No, he's a relatable humanistic character in what basically amounts to the Iron Man suit meets a Gundam made of death. It is a wingsuit bristling with knives. Fuck you, that's awesome. How are you hating this?
And how can we forget that major scene where he's taken his daughter, Liz, which was honestly like the biggest shock. I think I remember both of us looked at each other like, what the fuck?
I think it feels like a twist that, like, when you see it on paper, it's like, oh yeah, that's like the most obvious thing in the world. He's total, like, dun dun, you expect a dun 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 musical sting with it. But when you see it play out, it's just kind of, oh fuck. Oh, he's gonna pull a gun on him in this case. He's pulling a gun on a child. It's threatening to blow the head of, he's threatening to shoot a child into the head. This is,
dark.
It's dark for a Marvel movie, admittedly, but still, it's like I said about the Green Goblin's death. You didn't expect that in a Spider-Man movie. You don't expect a grown-ass adult to threaten with a gun in hand to murder a 16-year-old in a Marvel movie. It's just, I liked it.
I mean, it was just one of those...
More movies should have scenes of teenagers being threatened.
It's literally one of those scenes that definitely does kind of play up a bit, because I don't think we ever really figured out that, that Vulture knew that Peter Parker was indeed, Spider-Man, until he slowly started dropping hints and dropping hints and dropping hints. And
when he puts it together, it's like it's kind of an oh shit moment for him too, because he wants, he wants his daughter to be happy, and he's like, oh, fuck, I have to threaten a kid. Like, even he is like, I don't want to... He kind of doesn't want to do it, and I appreciated that. It's nice. Marvel has been doing a great job with these villains that aren't completely evil. Sometimes. Like Baron Zemo, he mostly wanted revenge for his family. Loki has transitioned basically into an anti-hero. The Vulture is doing everything he can, essentially, for his family, and because, he got screwed by the government and shit. So, the villains that work kind of do have that recurring theme. I kind of hope that doesn't mean that Marvel's going to catch on to that and just make all their villains like that, because, like, every once in a while, I mean, like, I kind of want, like, a version of like, I don't want Thanos to be relatable. I don't want Thanos to have a sad backstory. I want Thanos to punch a baby into atoms, okay? It's Thanos. I don't care if he's, like, a fucking puppy-boiling sociopath. It's Thanos.
So, are we kind of both in agreement that Michael Keaton's Vulture was the best villain out of all?
Oh, fucking easily. I would argue that if you were to take all the movies into account, the second best villain would probably be Doc Ock overall.
I agree with that. But, yep, it looks like we're going to be going with Michael Keaton. Keep up the good work, buddy. All right, so now we go into the lovey-dovey, heart-throbbing, just absolutely interesting, to say the least, love interest for all the Spider-Man movies. Starting off with let's start off with Spider-Man Homecoming. We've been doing like the same order for a while. Let's actually switch it up a bit. So, Spider-Man Homecoming, Liz, she plays like a typical high school girl. She lives kind of a normal life. She still wants to be likable and a little bit
she's
normal.
Pretty rich, man.
She is pretty rich. I will admit that. It's one of those things where it's like there's not much really to hate about her.
No.
But at the same time, she's not
to like.
It's not one of those things where it's like, she stands out as a great love interest. But I think that they are slowly trying to, build up the fact that Peter is probably like this, heartthrob, in all honesty. And this was probably like...
Which is just so weird.
It is weird. Anyway, but we'll definitely talk about that in a future episode. But yeah, with Liz, she's relatively okay. She does play the damsel in distress quite a bit. But she also plays this character of, she's a good girl. She's not one of those people that, goes out and tries to reinvent herself by, like, doing drugs or doing stuff like that. She's actually just trying to live a normal life. And eventually her life is turned upside down because finding out her dad is the Vulture and she has to leave. And is there...
My dad is the Vulture.
And finding out that is there a chance that maybe she'll come back in a future episode, in a future movie? Maybe have, like, a brief deal. Maybe she just appears in like a video montage or something like that, but nothing too major. So, yeah, I mean, this isn't bad. It's just not exactly one of those characters that really, I think, stands out in the world of love life for any of the Spider-Man or really Marvel. Really, I can honestly say that.
I was pretty unimpressed. She was just kind of there. I really wasn't too overly fond of her all that much necessarily, nor was I too overly invested in the relationship. I mean, as soon as it came out, oh, he's the Vulture, and that flushes that down the toilet. I don't know. It didn't do anything for me. Not nothing against it, but I have nothing really in it,
Fair enough. All right, so let's go into The Amazing Spider-Man.
I want to talk about this.
Miss Gwen Stacy. We're just talking about the first movie. We're not talking
I know, but I know the second one happened.
With Gwen Stacy, I think she has a little more personality to her. And
a lot more personality.
She definitely does. And I think with Emma Stone's, instant charisma that she naturally has, it really is one of those movies that roles that really she fit into perfectly. She definitely, shows genuine shock about finding out about, Peter Parker actually being Spider-Man. She, in future movies really shows her loyalty to Peter, unlike,
Love that line. I am in so much trouble. Just, yeah.
She has a fun
You're not wrong.
She just has a fun-loving side to her. She definitely...
Making her a fucking science whiz as well. That was actually kind of nice, considering that the original Gwen Stacy, it's like, oh, she's nothing like the Gwen Stacy from the comics. That's because the original Gwen Stacy was kind of...
blondish.
Well, in horror movies, the stereotypical, like, that opening girl who just runs and faints, and she's just like, ah. Yeah. That's pretty much Gwen Stacy.
Oh, no.
So, like, they gave her a personality. Like, it's like, I'm not going to complain about that. And her chemistry with
Peter?
Yeah, with Peter was absolutely phenomenal. Obviously, them dating in real life probably had something to do with that. But, hey, that's sometimes... life is nice and, gives you something that'll work really well in a film. And they have very natural chemistry together. Both two very good actors. They brought a lot out of each other, and it felt like a very believable occasionally awkward, occasionally funny teenage romance.
Mm-hmm. I definitely do agree with that. Then we move on to Mary Jane, played by Kirsten Dunst.
Fuck this!
Okay, so in the first movie, she definitely does play kind of like the nice girl next door, and she kind of has that look that she definitely seems like she fits it. But when her personality comes into play, I don't know. I remember how I kind of envisioned, Mary Jane during the animated series, and again, I'm going to be probably basing a lot of this on the animated series. It's just one of those things where, I don't know, her personality just really is kind of blandish, and it doesn't really improve. And throughout the movies, we definitely do see that she's never really loyal to Peter, which is probably one of the reasons why I prefer some of the other women, because they're just saying, hey, I know who you are, I know what you're doing, but yeah, but just in the first movie, she just plays kind of like the random, girl next door. She's kind of there. She does play the love interest a little bit, but they never really share any kind of interest in each other until, like, maybe the end, really?
I don't like Mary Jane in this movie or any of them.
Okay, so let's just cut the head off right now. Let's just end this misery for you. I think we're both in agreement. Gwen Stacy?
Yes!
All right, Gwen Stacy it is. So Spider-Man.
Mary Jane, my ass. You ain't no Mary Jane. They basically dyed Gwen Stacy's, like the original comic book Gwen Stacy's hair red and threw her next door to Peter, and I'm just like, why would you even do that?
Well.
And then Kirsten Dunst just acting her ass off. God damn. This has all the charisma of a shoe.
All right.
Fuck off.
So now we are at the final leg of our deal, and that is who was the better Spider-Man? Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, or Tom Holland? And this is still tough for me to even decide between, because all three of them have done an actually pretty decent job. And I'm just basing these on the first three movies. First movies alone. We're not going to go any deeper than Spider-Man 3 or Amazing Spider-Man 2. We're not going to go deep into that.
No. Regardless of that, I mean, for what he is and for what they were going for, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man is pretty damn good.
He can be. He was.
They got
good.
that awkward, quiet. Like, if you're looking for the 1960s Peter Parker from, when the comics were first introduced, probably up through, just when he was first starting college. So probably a good, 3 to 5 years worth of actual comics there. That was Peter. He was very nebbish. He was quiet and awkward and kind of weepy. And, I mean, that was Peter Parker in a nutshell. His powers didn't really change his personality. And stuff like him actually inadvertently being responsible for the burglar dying. Or, the Venom symbiote bringing out this rage where it's like, no, he fucking wants to kill Sandman. Like, you read the old comics, for fuck's sake, the original comic, Amazing Fantasy 15, he gets made fun of by a bunch of kids and they pile into a car and drive off. And as he's walking away, he's, trying not to cry about it, but he's like, someday I'll show them all. I'm like, dude, that makes you sound like a school shooter. I know it's 63 in this comic, but still. So, I mean, for what they were trying to do, which was adapt the early style and tone, he's perfect. People have complained about the performance, but the performance for what they were going for is perfect. Everything about him is 60s Peter Parker, is early Peter Parker, Silver Age Peter Parker, in a nutshell. It doesn't get more 100% spot on than that. I mean, and in terms of casting, in terms of the performance they needed and were going for, again, that's almost some, Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man shit going on. I mean, I would have liked it if he'd cracked a few more jokes, but that's... Well, when he's like, it's you who's out, Gobby, out of your mind, or you know who I am, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Those are the kind of jokes he cracked in the 60s, because he was the 60s, and the 60s comics were dorky, and he was a dorky character. So it just got doubled.
Yeah.
He was perfect for the role. So.
But I mean, in all honesty, you can't deny he did have one of the best jokes of the entire Spider-Man deals, and that was his cage match with Bonesaw, a.k.a. Macho Man Randy Savage, where he just says, "That's a cute little outfit. Did your husband make it for you?" I'm sorry, I don't care what anybody says. That is the line that really
Get you for 3 minutes of playtime.
Can we count Bonesaw as a villain in the
We will
Spider-Man
count him
movie?
as a supporting cast.
Okay, fair enough.
No,
Damn
but,
it, that actually probably would have just swung my vote just a little bit. But, yeah, I honestly did think that, Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man was pretty good. And he definitely set the bar, especially with this first movie. He definitely showed his emotions whenever he needed to be, although somehow I'm amazed at how every single time he's able to cry on command. But that being the point, it was one of those moments where, he needed to have that kind of emotion when Uncle Ben died. And then having go from that teary-eyed to that look of just absolute, wanting to just kill a bitch.
Did you show my Uncle mercy? Did you? Like, whoa. I mean, I don't blame you, but whoa, man.
It was one of those moments where, he was doing that out of rage. And, again, that moment where he realizes, I could have stopped this, really stood out. It was one of those things where it was like, oh, wow, they're showing basically, like, this is how...
They're doing the whole deal here.
It worked. It was one of those things where I think that was a game changer for Spider-Man, where he realizes that, him not doing, good things has consequences.
I have a moral duty to do this.
Yeah.
Although I will say this, I do think Amazing Spider-Man has the better version of the whole with great power message when he's like, if you have the ability to do the right thing, you have the responsibility to do it. Because, great power, obviously, the comics are originally written for kids. Mm-hmm. Even today, they're written in such a way, well, the good ones, so that, anybody can enjoy them regardless of age. But back in the 60s, they're written for kids. They were trying to get a moral message across. And I kind of think if you have the ability to do the right thing, you have the responsibility to do it, is a better moral message than if you have great power, you have great responsibility. So, but yeah, my only issue with the original Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire, is that it is just an adaptation of the 60s. And don't get me wrong, if that's what they were going for, they fucking nailed it. Hell, to be honest, if Venom had existed in the 60s comics, that's probably how... Spider-Man 3 is probably how he would have gone down. People, you might think I'm joking, but go back and read some of that stuff from the 60s. Yeah, it's, foundational and it's fun to read, but it's fucking silly-ass shit. The whole, he goes emo and starts, dancing and shit. Yeah, that probably would have fucking happened. I'm not... if not in the comics, it would have happened in the old 60s cartoon. I guarantee you. But my issue is just, yeah, he is just an adaptation to that one era, but it's not called, The Amazing Spider-Man or, Silver Age. It's just called Spider-Man. And then you bring in Green Goblin and alluding to the death of Gwen Stacy, and then it's I don't know. And for me, I'll admit, I like cheesy, campy stuff, but those movies take it way too far.
I could agree with that.
Although Spider-Man 3, kind of in its own way, goes so far around that it kind of becomes just amazing to watch it. Holy shit. It's like a Rube Goldberg machine of what the fuck were you thinking?
I think with my thoughts with Amazing Spider-Man 2 is... Amazing Spider-Man, I should say, is that I don't know if I really liked some of the moments where Peter was a bit dickish at times. I kind of thought it kind of took away from his actual personality of him being a nice guy and...
Him being a hero.
Yeah. But I will say that one of the things I did appreciate was the fact that with Andrew Garfield, when he was Spider-Man, he definitely had that kind of presence of just... I think that, when he's dressed as Spider-Man, his voice definitely has that intimidation factor where he definitely could be one of those guys where, he's not going to sound too high-pitched and squealy, but he's one of those guys who could definitely have a little more... I get more of a presence and a little more intimidation factor, I guess.
And speaking of the masks, Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3 with Tobey Maguire. Well, he always, he sounded like he's wearing a mask. Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. He sounds like he's wearing a mask. Spider-Man Homecoming. Sounds like he's just nothing. Dude, stop ruining the mystique!
Right.
It's a little, tiny, completely pedantic thing, but it bothers me. Because, like, fucking Black Panther, when his helmet thing goes on, his voice sounds slightly muffled. It's like, you couldn't do it for Peter? Fuck you, Marvel. I will never watch your movies again.
Right.
Spider-Man doesn't sound like he's wearing a mask. No, I love the Amazing Spider-Man version of Peter. I like, when I was a little kid, I always related to Peter because, like, oh, I love science and I'm the geeky kid and I get picked on and all that, and I love his stories. With Amazing Spider-Man, I remember being in high school and when he was being a dick, I remember being that kid. Like, someone like, screwed with me, okay, whatever. Someone screwed with one of my friends, and it's just like, I will fucking break you. So I could really relate to that. So, and I know, you and a lot of people are like, it kind of like takes away from him being like a hero, and I'm like, yeah, but it adds to him just being
an actual human being.
Yeah, especially, a teenager, which I know, I gotta complain, oh god, it's like the third or fourth time, in 2012, it's like the third or fourth time in movies and TV he's been a teenager. Oh god, make it stop. But it was, outside of Spectacular Spider-Man, it's probably the best depiction of teenage Peter Parker, so.
Probably. Let me move on.
Although his suit still sucked in the first. Oh god, it looked like he skinned basketballs and painted them. I love that version of Peter, but that costume, what were you thinking? Especially since you have the iconic, like, oh cool, the webs are all like raised up design from like the original trilogy movies, and then in the current one, oh, they brought back the web between the arms, and it's like got its own like version of the red and blue pattern kind of going on. It's like, oh, that's so cool. And then what do we get for fucking the first Amazing Spider-Man movie? The first movie to actually bear the title of the comic, Skinned Basketballs. You Mark Webb. Fuck you, Sony. Kiss my ass, Skinned Basketballs. I hated that shit. The web shooters were fucking tight. I loved them web shooters. You dropped the ball. I mean, for fuck's sake. You know what we got in the next Spider-Man costume? The eye lenses would move like they do in the comics. The best you can give me is skinned sports equipment. Kiss my ass. This is some Bobby Roode GTS bullshit.
And then, of course, we talk about Tom Holland, and for his adaptation of Spider-Man, I think that since it was more dealing with him working in high school, it gives him a little bit more of a leniency because he is still young, he is still immature at times. If you want to make that,
he feels like a modern kid.
Yeah, he really does. I mean, they really modernized it. That was the beautiful part about it, is that they didn't try to make it into some random deal that was brought from like the 80s or the 60s or for whatever. They brought it in like, it was a modern day deal where it's like, oh, well, this kind of happened, during this time. Uncle Ben died during this time, and they talk about selfies and everything like that. It's like, it's good. It's got that.
Yeah, and that's another thing I liked about the Amazing one too. Is both of them modernized it. I do think that just in terms of modernization, they did it better in Amazing because Homecoming has its very own distinct feel, and so does Amazing. But Amazing still, it feels like they modernized Spider-Man without losing the spirit of it.
Fair enough.
But no, I know what you mean. Like Tom Holland Spider-Man, like, he feels like a kid of 2016, 2017. Like, just pure and simple. Like, I've met plenty of kids his age in the last year or two, and he sounds a lot like them, he talks like them, he has similar interests. I mean, I'll say this, he felt like a real fucking kid.
He really did. Alright, so this is it, the moment of truth. Max started off. Who was the best Spider-Man?
Well, we got the best in terms of just adapting any period of Spider-Man. Then we've got, like, the best modernization of Spider-Man. And then we've got, like, the most feels like a real person Spider-Man. So they all stand out in one area and do that better than any of the others. Oh man, I gotta go Andrew Garfield. I got to. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I said, putting aside any personal preferences or anything like that, the original trilogy is like perfect in terms of being an adaptation of a certain section of like, if you'd given those same people the 70s version of Spider-Man or how he was more in the 80s and 90s or today, it wouldn't have worked as well. But for what they like, that was that like, how the fuck's sake, when they did like whenever they did like the spinning newspaper thing, I'm like, oh my god, that is they did panels like that in the 60s, for crying out loud. And Tom Holland's Spider-Man feels like its own distinct thing. He feels very much like a modern-day real kid. But at the same time, Amazing Spider-Man felt to me like... Okay, sorry. The original trilogy felt like Spider-Man from the 60s. Cool. Amazing Spider-Man felt like, what if Spider-Man happened in 2012? Okay, cool. Spider-Man Homecoming... In terms of being a Spider-Man movie, I don't know how I would actually, like, rate it. And in terms of Peter himself, he just... It feels almost too distinctly its own thing. I don't know. I mean, I still love him as a character. Like, the two best things about Spider-Man Homecoming, in my opinion, were Spider-Man and the Vulture. Everything else I thought was kind of, okay. This story's okay, whatever. But those two, like, they fucking knocked it out of the park. Makes me want to see Spider-Man show up in Infinity War. Makes me want to see Spider-Man Homecoming, too. Although, why are they calling the whole series Spider-Man Homecoming? What the fuck, Disney?
It's a working title right now.
They fucking... better be. Because I'm sorry, I think if you call it Spider-Man Homecoming, I'm just gonna like, alright, he's eternally in high school. We get to the fifth one. He's like 33. He's 17! No, but, I gotta give it to Amazing Spider-Man. For me, he's the best cinematic Spider-Man.
You know what? As much as it kills me to say, I agree. I think that, especially when you mention the fact that, you know, when they try to, humanize Spider-Man, as Andrew Garfield really does try to do a good job. He is more of a serious actor. I think that there's parts of him that I thought, well, maybe he's not exactly fit to be Spider-Man because, he's not really as funny. He's not really as...
I don't know, man. But some of the quips he had, like, if you're gonna be a car thief, if you're gonna jack cars, don't dress like a car thief. Like, or you found my one weakness. It's small knives. And I'm just like, oh my god, that's fucking great. That is like, even though he's being a little bit malicious in that scene, it's like, those are totally Spider-Man jokes. You found my one weakness. It's small knives. I love that shit.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes down to it, your winner, and the best Spider-Man in our opinion, is the Amazing Spider-Man.
Ding, 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 ding.
From supporting cast to the Spider-Man himself, he definitely does find a way to really... be out there and really just come in of his own. Of course, second being Spider-Man Homecoming, and the final, of course, being the original Spider-Man. But not that we're going to be discrediting any of them. They all have their rightful place in history for Marvel. But just right here, that Amazing Spider-Man was the best adaptation of Spider-Man. So that is going to wrap it up for this edition of the Club Battle. That's right. I almost forgot the name of the title.
You made a joke about beating the movies to death at the start of this. You ruined my humor, sir.
I am sorry.
You should be.
I should be sorry. But of course, you guys, if you want to check out some more of amazing videos as well as some great comments by my co-host Mr. Mac B, you can check them out on Twitter at Agent Cooper 1989. Also follow me on Twitter at RealFNGame, and also give us a like on the Facebook fan page, facebook.com/changing up the game. So we will be back next week with another set of movies that we'll be pitting off against each other. Maybe it'll be continuation in Marvel. Maybe we'll go into DC. Who knows? There was even talks about us talking about two movies that a certain actor did that we're thinking, well, maybe we should choose which one was better of the worst. But maybe we'll save that for a little bit later on. Yeah, I'm looking at Max. He already knows the two movies that I'm talking about. And let's just say...
No, Mr. Max not here. Lemon Pledge.
Well, for Consuela and for the Not Departed, Max Beatty, I am Nate the Effing Great from the Game Changer. And remember that we're always trying our best to spread joy to one person at a time and to change the game one day at a time. Thank you guys so much. We will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.